Hello, I'm Nathan Gordon. I'm the CEO of Washington Realtors. I'm joined here today by
Annie Fitzsimmons, the Washington Realtors legal hotline lawyer.
If you'll give us just a few minutes today, we're going to talk to you about potential legal liability that is hanging out over the heads of many real estate firms in Washington state and the easy solution to have a waiver from that legal liability. Before we do that, though, I'm going to ask Annie to give just a little bit of background.
This all relates to the seller-filed class action lawsuits that you have no doubt heard about. They are nationwide, not just in Washington state. They originated back in 2019 when that first lawsuit was filed. And the allegation in that lawsuit is that the real estate industry, and the primary defendant was NAR, but this is really an industry-wide issue, that the industry had a compensation provision that requires sellers to compensate listing firms and then require listing firms to share compensation with buyer brokers. The Department of Justice and the plaintiffs in the seller class action lawsuits all alleged that this mechanism of compensation enabled buyer brokers to steer buyers to sellers who are offering the highest rate of compensation, and that based on that, the real estate industry forced sellers to hire more compensation than they would have otherwise, equating to what the Department of Justice and the plaintiffs' lawyers deemed a violation of antitrust law. Last fall, a federal court agreed with the plaintiffs and a jury awarded a large verdict in favor of the class action sellers. That verdict would have resulted in a $5.8 billion judgment, and in order to avoid that judgment, NAR settled the lawsuit. As part of that settlement, NAR negotiated a release of liability for all of its members nationwide, a release of liability from all claims that could have been filed in that lawsuit or that sound like that seller class action lawsuit. The release applies to all NAR members whose, and I have to read this because it's specific information, whose residential transaction volume in 2022 was $2 billion or less. So for all Realtor member firms whose residential transaction volume in 2022 was $2 billion or less, they are released from liability in this seller-filed class action lawsuit. And here's the important part. And all of the many, many copycat lawsuits that look a lot like that seller class action lawsuit and followed on the heels of it.
So if your firm falls under that category and in 2022 they had $2 billion or below in residential transaction volume, the good news is the only remaining step for you to get released from that liability is to make sure your firm is a realtor firm by August 17th. And as long as your firm is a realtor firm by August 17th, and again, you fall under that $2 billion cap, not only you, but also your brokers are released from that legal liability, and that is potentially there for your firm and your brokers right now. We also know that currently, one of the top issues that brokers are concerned about when they're being recruited is liability of the firm. We do know that there is some recruiting going on from firms saying, come over to my firm. We aren't going to have any liability. We will not see future lawsuits. So not only is this a release of potential liability, but it also is sort of a leg up and making sure that you can recruit brokers on par with other realtor firms, and that you won't be losing your brokers.
Yeah, that's right. Retain your own brokers.
Right. So the question may be, how do I get this started? Well, very quick, very simple. All you have to do is go to wallrealtor.org/protection. There we have a form that will take you 30 seconds to fill out. Give us some basic information. We'll make sure to get that form into the hands of somebody who will contact you to talk to you about how to take the next steps to remove that potential liability from your firm and your brokers. Got to do it quick though. August 17th is the deadline. While this isn't a real labor-intensive process, it still does take a little bit of time. And so if you want that liability removed, if you want to stay on equal footing with other brokerages in the state as they're recruiting brokers, I'd really encourage you to visit wahrealtor.org/protection, fill out that form, and we'll make sure that you're protected.
As is always the case when we're talking about releases of liability and legal liability, we recommend that you consult your own firm's legal counsel with respect to all of these issues as they pertain to you. Certainly a quick reading of the NAR settlement agreement will allow your legal firm, your lawyer, to give you the advice that you need with respect to this issue and what your liability may be with and without Realtor membership on August 17th.
And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't at least quickly say, not only would you get a release from that potential liability by being a member firm, but you also get access to all sorts of other benefits. The fantastic Annie Fitzsimmons, who is our legal hotline attorney, is always there to help firms and brokers out on legal questions.
Legal education.
Legal education, which we also know is a top issue for brokers as they're looking for which firm they want to hang their license in. You get access to our tech helpline, which is very helpful if you have any technology problems and you don't have a 13-year-old at home to help you with them. And of course, there are other benefits beyond that. But again, to get that release of liability, which we think is important, we hope every firm in Washington is released from liability. At this point, the only way to get that release is to make sure you're a realtor firm by August 17th.
Yeah, if you don't have it yet, the only way to get it is to become a realtor firm.
So, wahrealtor.org/protection. Thank you for giving us a couple minutes of your time today.